Good afternoon. This is kind of a video response to Chris from Unification Now, who asked people to ask spiritual questions. I've always been a person who dreams a lot. I have very vivid dreams every night, and I'll come out and do a search on the internet for dreams and what they mean, and they're pretty accurate. Like, if you dream of a horse, it means this, or if you dream of a white cat, it means this, or whatever. And I have found that a lot of it is true, but it just isn't detailed enough for me. So I don't know if anyone watching is into dream interpretation or believes it's baloney or whatever, but apparently my subconscious is going wild, and I'd like to see if Chris or anybody else has any kind of insight into what any of this could mean. When I describe the dreams, because I wrote it down by hand, when I refer to Herm or Herman, that's my husband, Dan is my brother, Jen or Genesis is my niece, Jordan is my nephew, of course there's Mom, and Dad, is who I would refer to, rather than using first names there. And we'll go from there. I won't give you any details of what's going on in my life, except of course most people know that my dad did pass away March 12th of this year. But other than that, most people don't have any details of the situation that's been going on. So in any case, let's see what we can come up with. It began, I was looking out the window from my brother's bedroom and saw a robin's nest, a beautiful robin with 2 babies, and I told my niece Jen to come and take a look so that we could see the robins, and we both went to the window, and as we looked out, instead of seeing robins, we now saw owls, and an owl's nest, and there were two owls. One was facing away, and then there was we looked away, kind of like, wow, that was robins, and now there's owls, and there's robins on the right and there's owls on the left, and we looked again, and there was a huge eagle's nest in the middle, and it had 2 eagles in it, and I could see one was looking face and towards us, and one was facing the left. And I just remember being very excited. Wow, eagles, because eagles are so respected, and that sort of thing. And then my cat Sugar came up, and I had my cat Sugar while Jen and I were looking out the window, and all of a sudden we saw animals, groups of animals that we really couldn't identify, and they just started coming closer to the house, and we saw that they were wildcats, a lot of wildcats. I couldn't place them. They started by looking like jaguars, and then as we looked, they had different shaped heads than jaguars, and then I thought, well, maybe they're not wildcats, maybe they're hyenas, but it was a mixture. It was not like a legitimate looking animal. It was a mixture of something. So, but it was definitely scary animals, and Jen was scared, and we kind of like had our arms around each other, just like this, and like how you put your arm around somebody as you're looking out the window, and I was kind of consoling her, letting her know not to be scared, and I jokingly, looked at the cat, and said, well, Sugar, you're not going to be going outside anytime soon, I'm sure those animals would attack you, and that wouldn't be a good thing, so we're going to keep you inside. And then, it was like every time we would look away, it was like almost like a television screen, but it was our window, and everything was very real. I really thought this was happening. I didn't realize it was a dream at the time. We would look out, look away, and then look back again, and there was something else. And now it was kind of like a wigwam shaped nest, and we could look right into it, and it was rodents. And you know, I mean, it could have been any kind of rodent, but it wasn't anything recognizable. But you knew that it's, ooh, wow, you know, that's a rodent. And it wasn't a rat, it wasn't a mouse. It was more the size of a guinea pig, I'd say, maybe even bigger. But we're looking in there, and so I told my brother. We walked away from the window, and we're standing on the other side of the room, and I said, Dan, there's something that looks like a rat's nest outside your bedroom window. So we looked up, and I said, can you see it? And he said, yeah, I see it. And all of a sudden, from the view that we were at, it was like a diagonal view, we could see inside this little wigwam, you know, thing, and we could see one of the rodents looking out at us, and there was a bedroom. The inside of the wigwam, or the nest, was decorated like a little girl's bedroom, and there was a big fancy doll in there. It's pretty bizarre, isn't it? You know, and I said, can you see that? And he's like, yeah. You know, and, you know, there was basically no reaction from him, but, I mean, that's basically how he would respond. Like, yeah, it's pretty strange, he'd say, you know, but I don't think he would, other than that. You know, then my brother really would say much more than that. And then we moved on, and later on, and Dan and Jordan, my nephew, were in the downstairs hallway of the house that he lives in, and I had found some sort of a handwritten note, very small, and I showed it to Dan. Jordan, I don't know what it said, and Jordan shrugged his shoulders and ripped it up and threw it on the floor. And later on, you know, I came back to pick up this ripped note up off the floor, and Dan was upstairs in the middle room talking on the phone, and for some reason I could hear him plain as day, but he was in a room upstairs with the door closed, but where I was standing I could hear him, and he was talking very low, and he was saying things to the effect of, please, why can't you just be reasonable, and things like that. And he was talking very nicely to someone, and it wasn't in a manipulative way. It wasn't like he was trying to convince anybody of anything in a sneaky way or anything. It was more like he was trying to work out a disagreement, and it seemed to me from what he was saying to her like it was his ex-wife. But it was very unusual to me for him to be talking to her that way, because that's not the kind of relationship they have. They, you know, I'm sure he talks nice to her and everything, but it's not in the tone and the manner that he would be talking to her right now. And then I went out into that room, like I said, to pick up that piece of paper, and Jordan had ripped up. And I'm going to have to cut it short now, because I think that if I go on, I'm going to run out of time. But that'll be part one, and you know, the reason why I felt compelled to say anything about this was everything was just so vivid. When I woke up, I remembered everything and felt I had to write it down, and figured I'd, you know, do a video and see what we can come up with. Okay, so that's it for part one. Thanks. Ciao.